So let's go ahead and open up Photoshop, and let's find our texture. So here it is. I'm already in my models folder. Find the texture, open. When we open that TIFF file, you can see I've got my mesh layer, which shows the outline of my object, and then I have a background layer, which is what I can paint on. And right now, by default, when you go to Photoshop and you open up an image, the background layer by default is always going to be locked. But we actually want to lock our mesh layer. We don't want to paint our mesh layer. We want to preserve that. So I'm going to actually lock my mesh layer, and then I'm going to select the background layer and unlock that because we're going to go ahead and paint on that layer. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to color this entire background. Like I said, mine's going to be a relatively simple material. It's going to look like kind of an asphalt roadway with some yellow stripes down the center. So I'm going to, I have already been experimenting with this, and that's how I determined what I wanted to do. So I already have my colors inside of my color swatches in the menu bar. So I've got my foreground color right now is a dark gray, which is like set for the asphalt. And just to show you, I'm going to adjust the color just a bit so you can see that I can create a new, I can modify this using the color picker to be anything that I want. You know, if I want a green road or something like that. But I'm going to just kind of stick with a dark gray kind of asphalty sort of color. And the same thing with this yellow. So I've got kind of like a kind of an orangey sort of a yellow here that I'm going to use for my stripe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and with my layer, and actually what we could do is we could rename this layer. That might not be a bad idea. So let's name that asphalt. Is that how we spell it? I guess so. Okay, asphalt. And I'm going to do Command A to select all. And go to Fill. And I'm going to choose my foreground color, hit OK, and then deselect. And you can see that since my UV mesh layer was locked, and I had my asphalt layer selected, that's where my color went, and I can still see on my UV mesh layer, I can still see the contours of my object. So I'm going to create even another layer, and I'm going to call this one Stripe. And this is where I'm going to paint my, or create my yellow stripe down the center of my road. So I'm going to select the rectangle marquee tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and make kind of a stripe. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to lock my asphalt layer so I don't accidentally select that, and make sure my stripe layer is selected. So I should have done that before I created this, but I'm in good shape right here. I'm going to go ahead to the Edit menu, go to Fill, choose the background color, and hit OK, and deselect. So now I have the stripe, and it's not really centered, but since it's on its own layer, I can go ahead and just use the selection tool and move it around. And I've got my smart guides on, and it's pretty much showing me where the center is. So that looks kind of good. I'm going to even make this skinnier. Oops. Now when I made that skinnier, it made the whole thing smaller. So what's happening is I've got this selected, and it's proportional, and I really just wanted to make this stripe skinnier. So I'm going to hold the Shift key so that, okay, there we go, so that it's not being modified proportionally. So let me just make this skinnier. Again, I'm holding Shift just so that I affect this one side of it, or one direction, and make it skinnier than that. Oops, let's see. There we go. All right, and then in my Move tool, and if I hold the Option key and hover over this and click, I can duplicate that, because I want to make like a double yellow line that's in the middle, no passing zone kind of a thing. And when I do that, it automatically creates the stripe, the copy or the duplicate on its own layer. And that could be okay, but what I'm going to do is just merge these layers so that I can move these together, because I think it's okay the way it is. I mean, I could leave it on 2 layers in case I want to experiment with like making these closer or farther apart, but I think I'm just going to merge these. So I'm holding Shift while I select one of these layers, hold Shift, select the other, and then I can go to my little menu and choose Merge Layers, or I can do Command E. And then let's just get rid of the word copy. All right, so now I can, if I wanted to make modifications to this, I could do that. All right, so now I'm ready to save. So I'm just hitting Command S to save. And I'll go ahead and close out of this.